Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Today I take the call from the highly energetic Leah Pruett, who's the driver of the Mopar Pennzoil Top Fuel Dragster, in addition to the driver of the Mopar Dodge Challenger Drag Pack. She's in that top fuel category, and if you know anything about drag racing, this is the most incredible thing you'll see. Vehicles going over 334 miles per hour down a quarter mile. And I just remember as a young kid watching those races. You can feel it in your blood. You can feel it in the ground. These things are absolutely incredible. And in the interview with Leah today, one of the things that I love about her is that she didn't necessarily say yes to opportunities, but she talks about how she created her yes, how she fell in love with the sport at an early age, figured out how she can get involved, and created her own yes. And she tells her story along the way on how she continued to do that and her successes along the way. I'm just thrilled to have her on the show, and I love her energy. So please enjoy today's show. Well, welcome to The Answers Yes. I've got another racer on the line. I know I promised Jim Beaver I wouldn't have too many race people on here, but I just can't help it. I love what people are doing out there, and we all have that need for adrenaline. So today I've got Leah Pruett on the line. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm good. I just love all the connectivity that we have in our other worlds between Jim Beaver and David Meltzer and the like. And I just love what you're doing. I had a minute to go through your social media, and you are just on fire out there. What a wonderful career you've had.
Well, thank you. No, I believe so too with our connections. And honestly, going back to all of them, it's because you or I both have probably said yes at some point in time to take on an opportunity that has brought us to them and then connected us in the 7 ways. So definitely a living, breathing testament to saying yes, both good and bad.
I was going to say.
And that's what life's about, right?
Yeah, maybe we've said yes one too many times, but certainly we've enjoyed the ride. You have such a wonderful story, and my listeners always look forward to humble beginnings and kind of that pathway to success, or at least where you're at in your career. Would you mind taking us back to when you're – normally I'd say take us back, when you got into college and your professional career started, but you started racing at a very young age. You weren't even thinking about probably high school at that time, but can you take us back a little bit and how all this started for you?
Sure, absolutely. So for those listeners that may not know, I'm a professional drag racer in the NHRA. I've been racing for 22 years. Started when I was 8 years old by the influence of my father, who by no means was a drag racer. If anything, he was a street racer, and he wanted his 2 children, my sister and I, to race responsibly and grow up in motorsports with him. So his passion was land speed racing. So I knew the Dirty 2 Club, Bonneville Salt Flats, El Mirage. That's kind of where I grew up. So yes, starting very young in a junior dragster, 5 horsepower Briggs and Stratton. I mean, loading it up in the back of a 78 Ford pickup, going to the rundown Rialto Raceway or Lancaster. Like, that was my childhood.
Yeah.
And breaching over, I'll miss a lot of gaps here, but I attended my first national event. And for those that may have never been to a nitro drag race before, it's extremely exhilarating, not just clearly for somebody that's in the car, but for the fans. It makes you feel that you have a sixth sense you never had before. Everything is completely touched and mesmerized by the nitro in your nostrils, making your eyes water. You feel the vibrations through your fingertips, through your soul, through your toes. It's an incredible experience. So as a child, I'm basically doing Pee-wee football that has now attended their first NFL game, going, wow, this is the big leagues. And I fell in love. It was the Winter Nationals. And I remember seeing Eddie Hill and John Force, and I was like, man, I want to be a professional race car driver so bad. Like, this is it. Everything about it, the teamwork, the sportsmanship, the competition, the mechanics that I didn't even understand as a child. I dedicated my life to finding out how to do that, because there's there's some certain ways to become that. And, one of them, of course, is being born into a family with lineage in that. And that wasn't me, or coming from a very well-off family. That wasn't me either, or becoming a crew chief. And I knew I wasn't very mechanically inclined, but I saw an opportunity as a youngin' looking up going, man, there's not like a young female 20-something-year-old out there that's just kind of broken the mold, made her way, and is just stomping all over the boys on her own. I said, I think that there's a way that I could do that. And I catered my entire education, building of nostalgia cars, racing all different classes of sportsmen, and up the way through the ranks of 8 different classes over 15 different years to get where I am today.
I love that you found something early in life that you fell in love with, but then you made a conscious effort to dedicate your life to that or learning how to do that. And I think oftentimes we see that, but we always think, I could never do that. That's not for me. What gave you the confidence so early on that this could be something you could do?
I honestly looked at what would be the void. And looking for the opportunities. So there's times where you say yes to an opportunity that's in front of you, or you say yes to an opportunity that you have to, or have the opportunity to create. So the confidence for me was, right, just imagine you're 18 years old, you're graduating high school, and you tell your counselor that you want to be a pro race car driver. And listen, right, they probably don't have a lot of guidance for you. And to this point, I think there's so many programs now, even in off-road, in NHRA, the YES program, the launch program. You've got CAP with Mopar. There's so many different ways to help influence and educate kids on the different career paths. But I didn't have that at the time. Besides auto shop, that would be in high school. Just think if you're only open to what's become available to you. So the courage for me was to go to Cal State San Bernardino, work through school. I became a paralegal after 3 years at a law firm to pay for school. But I knew the only way for me to drive a race car is, just to really dumb it down, is to find money. These things are really expensive. They cost $3 million plus a year. So in order to do that, you have to have Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies that are backing you and believe in you. And you actually have to develop your skill set outside of the racetrack. And that, of course, for me was pursuing business marketing and a second degree in communications. I knew I needed to build. Nobody told me I needed to. I just derived from what it is that I wanted and what it would take to get there. So I think doing a SWOT analysis on your entire potential career or your situation at hand and then you have to delve down and feel, you have to have a conversation with yourself and go, what can I do and what am I passionate about? And then also, what am I scared of? I hated public speaking. I still do. But I knew that I needed to harness that skill set in order to be able to obtain my goal. And when you look at the two things between your fear and your potential, which one excites you more? Are you more fearful of failing, or are you more excited about what could be by overcoming that fear? So for me, it started with public speaking. And then from there was, man, how am I going to tell the stories of incredible partners in order for them to partner with me and us go rule the world at 330 miles an hour? And in a long period of time was able to accumulate wonderful, not only teams to partner with like Don Schumacher Racing and Dope Racing, but today represent Shell and Pennzoil, Dodge, Mopar, FCA, companies like Fire Raid, Sparkling Ice. They all have a different story to tell in a different market base. And the one thing for me that I've stayed true to is always about, and I think this can apply to everybody, is although you're in your pursuit of your own goal, the number one thing should actually be, what can you do for other people? Because at the end of the day, it will come full circle. But the more that you deliver for other people and tell their stories and help them achieve their goals, it will in turn and in kind help you achieve yours.
It's a true prodigy of David Meltzer right there, right? The more you give, the more it comes back, tenfold usually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You talked about... Please go ahead.
Oh, I just was going to give a real quick example of one of the first times that I said yes to something that was very frightening for me. And that was, I was about 19 years old, and maybe I was 20 at the time. I'd consecutively raced my whole life, cold called companies. The first biggest one that I cold called and became something was Dickies Girl Apparel, and raced with them for 2 years. I failed at really knowing how to keep a marketing partnership alive and give ROI in the sphere that I was in. But I actually put out a Facebook post, and this is where it becomes very real. I thanked everybody, and I said, I'm coming into my last year of college. I really need to focus on graduating with my 2 degrees. Unfortunately, I was unable to pull the funds together to continue racing. I'm not giving up my passion, but, basically BRB on the situation. And in that, I had got a comment on my post from a multi-millionaire named Roger Burgess, who had a drag racing team, and asked me, Leah, this is on the comments in front of the entire world to see, Leah, would you be interested in driving a pro modified car? And I know all about those cars.
Oh my gosh.
They're short wheelbase, suspension based, go 250 miles an hour, and they could wreck at any sneeze of a drop of a hat at any button. They're the most difficult cars to drive. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is like, I mean, I'd be the fans in the stands watching them going, those fools are crazy. But I had just basically given my 2 weeks on my career to put it on hold, and somebody with this incredible opportunity that was very frightening I didn't think my driving skill set was there. I didn't live in Atlanta. I lived in Southern California. I needed to uproot my entire life to make that opportunity happen. And that's what I did. 100%. Left Southern California, said yes to Roger. We initiated the testing process, and within 6 months, I was racing and competing. And within 12 months, I had won 3 national events, and that was my 3 national events I've ever won.
Wow.
The first 3 I ever won. So it was very scary, because the first time I got in one of those cars, it did exactly what I thought it was going to do. I about flipped over, and I overdrove it, because somebody could tell you all they want how to do something, and until you really experience it, are you going to learn it yourself? Whether it's dribbling a basketball, right, and shooting hoops, or running a business, there's things you can only learn by doing them. Yeah. And I was as close as you could come to absolutely, completely crashing and wrecking. I was able to save it. And then from there on out, this is my first time in that car, I was like, okay, I know where the barriers are at. Yes, let's keep going. I can do this. And I thrived off of that adrenaline.
Just for fun, and I know it doesn't do it any justice, because I've been in some big cars, nothing like what you've been in. What is it like to get into that car for the first time? Can you explain it a little bit? I mean, the volume of the motor, the tight seat down to the track, and what it feels like. Can you take us back to when you got in that car for the first time?
Sure. The name, it was a 69 Corvette Pro Mod, super low to the ground, gnarly zoomings out the side, and the name of this car was called Voodoo. And it had this really cool paint job on the back of this woman that just looks scarier than hell, like a Medusa type of goth situation. And that's the aura that I had getting into the car, but on a positive note. And it was the most exciting portion of that day was, this is the next chapter in my life that I actually didn't ask for, but I took, right? I said yes to. And so that's the next step after you could say yes all you want, but it's the execution and the follow through. And so when I strapped on my helmet and I got in that car for the first time, it's in Gainesville, Florida. It's 10 a.m. It's a private track rental. It's extremely foggy. I can't even see a quarter mile down the track. That's how foggy and dewy it was. And it was all right. And it's a clutch car. It's a blower car. So there's way more that you do operating this vehicle than I've ever done in any other vehicles in order to launch. And it's screaming, leading the line at 5,000 RPM. And as soon as I let go of the clutch and went out there, it set me back in the seat. And at that moment, before I'd even gone left or